Hey everybody, it's Tobin. Thanks for checking out the channel. If you guys could subscribe here, that'd mean a lot to me. And watch the Tobin and Leroy show weekdays from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. on 560 WQAM's YouTube page. You guys can go watch there. Go subscribe. You get a notification every time we go live. Porpoise Pod goes up there as well. You guys can watch the Porpoise Pod and all types of things. Got a lot of fun coming up this week. UFC Miami, very excited about the Marlins. Anyway, the Heat are taking on the Pistons. They got 3 road games and then a Magic game to wrap up the season this week. And it appears Bam Adebayo is going to be banged up going into this final week. Bam, speaking to reporters yesterday after Heat practice, Erik Spoelstra was saying that Bam could barely move on Saturday. Bam says that he improved a lot. He said, quote, "I'm one of those people that tries to fight through it. The fact that I could barely walk was obviously a problem. The biggest thing was getting healthy and getting my body right." He said that he's not 100%, quote, "but nobody is 100% at this time of the year, so I'm going to give my team what I got." Now, thankfully for the Heat, they got a hell of a performance from Cody Zeller. He was awesome. Kevin Love also had one of his better games of the year with Miami. But, Bam, couple things. You need to get Bam feeling right. You need to get him physically right for the playoffs. And he's going to be, if you're going to have any shot at hell. People kept asking me yesterday, "Oh, do you think that the Heat can make a run? Do you think the Heat can make a run?" Well, they can't make a run without an effective Bam. They can't. Everybody knows that. I think that you're not going to do anything without Bam being his best self. So, little concerning, and there's a lot of Pistons that are going to be sitting tonight. I almost really wish, to be honest with you, I saw this yesterday. I saw that Ira was like, "Oh, these are all the people that are sitting for the Pistons." And I was thinking to myself, like, honestly, I'd rather the Heat take on the bad boy Pistons and then have the bench of the 2004 championship Pistons. Give me all of the best Pistons. Isaiah, Lambeer, Rick Mahorn, with a side of Rip Hamilton, Chauncey Billups, Sheed, and Ben Wallace. And I feel like I would prefer the Miami Heat having to take on that team with stuff on the line than I would a tanking Pistons team. Makes me very nervous. Some dude I've never heard of is going to go out there and light it up for Detroit tonight. So, yeah, it makes me nervous. I really genuinely wish we could get the franchise Pistons best shot than some hodgepodge mixed bag of Pistons that's going to just, go off that we've never heard of. So we'll see. But all in all, they really do need to get this one tonight. They need to get things situated. It does look more and more like the Heat are headed for a play-in, and what that looks like is the Heat would be right now. The Heat would currently host a play-in game on Tuesday the 11th. So they have these last 4 games, which wraps up on Sunday. They'll have Monday off, and then Tuesday would be hosting the play-in, which currently would be against the Atlanta Hawks. But, the Raptors, the Bulls are both right there. And, look, like, quite frankly, we just seen that the Raptors have given the Heat the business. Chicago's given the Heat troubles this year. Atlanta's probably the matchup you would want if you were talking about, hey, could you set yourself up? And I think you also, in this scenario, if you had to pick Bucks or Celtics, I'd say you'd want the Celtics over the Bucks. That's just me personally. Between Milwaukee's length, they've been looking a little bit better. I think they've looked. I know the Celtics did just give them that work by like 40, but I would say Milwaukee's probably looked like the better team this second half of the season. And I'm disappointed that the Heat have put themselves in this opportunity where, they really don't get a shot at taking on Philly in the first round. I would have thought that was I would have thought that would have been a prime opening matchup for Miami, a team that they don't fear, they don't really, I don't think they're concerned about. But this is what happens, when you blow the games that you've blown. It's a real disappointment they've put themselves in this position, quite frankly. And right now, and they'd have to finish ahead of Brooklyn. They can't just finish tie with Brooklyn. Brooklyn has the tiebreaker. Brooklyn's won 3 in a row, and Brooklyn the rest of the way has the Timberwolves, the Pistons, the Magic, and then Sixers at home with really nothing to play for. So, you can't really rely on them to do anything, but you already had your chance. You can't be a Heat team that's like, I remember years ago the Nets screwing the Heat in a scenario because they had nothing to play for and they rested guys. Like they rested Brook Lopez. I remember Ron Rothstein had a great rant about it. He goes, I don't understand this. He goes, you had nothing to, what are we resting people for? So now it's like, oh, we're resting people with like 7 games to go. Shut them down. Pretty crazy. But look, getting Bam back will help. And plus, we also have the new superhero tandem with Jimmy Butler and Cody Zeller.
We heard the nickname you have with Cody on that.
He came up with it. Black Man and Robin, baby.
I don't think Cody Zeller came up with that nickname. There's a great article. I recommend people going to read it. I don't want to spoil the whole thing, but there's a great article by Barry Jackson in the Miami Herald, which described. It was a great interview that Barry did with a bunch of the Heat players talking about what Erik Spoelstra has been like during the struggles. Because, I did a video a couple days back. I forget what loss it was after. I think it was after the last Knicks loss. And I was just like, how can he maintain such a positive public face with all of this stuff? Like, I feel like I would be going nuts as a coach, just ripping everybody. And apparently what Spo's been doing is a lot of one-on-one meetings. That's been like a big thing for him. And some of his other, he's had some other motivational tactics, like Tyler Hero. This is what Barry writes. I'll give you one that Barry wrote about. Tyler Hero was struck by a video that Spoelstra showed him of Snoop Dogg, 50 Cent, Eminem, and how they started. And the manager they had was one of the ones rallying the troops, which is Spo. Spo does this every year. But this year it has been a little bit more with how up and down it's been. Not been a guy who publicly rips people, but been doing a lot of meetings, having a lot of motivational tactics. He's telling guys to journal. He'll leave stuff in their locker. It's a lot of great stuff that Barry put in this article for Heat fans out there. So I'd recommend checking that on out. Even Spo getting angry during timeouts, what that's been like. But yeah, look, man, the one thing I will say, this was a quote that he gave Barry about yelling and why he hasn't been yelling at people during, why he hasn't had a real ripping of the players. He said, quote, "That has nothing to do with winning. To me, press conference and coach ranting doesn't necessarily do anything for winning. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. I don't know, but that's not my style. For better or worse, we handle our business here." And that's been clear. He's not been a guy who has been, maybe Hassan got the business one time after multiple fights with players, but yeah, it's just not ever been his style. It's always we have enough, we have the answers, all that stuff. And I think players respect it. I think players respect that, he has not been the guy that does that, has ever taken accountability. And, to be at that part, you're one of the all-time greats. He definitely has the clout to do it, right? Top 15 coach of all time, likely headed to the Hall of Fame. And for him to just, always take guys aside and try and fix the issues there behind the scenes instead of leaving guys out to dry, I do think that gets a lot of respect around the league. I think that's why, I think that for the Heat fan, it's an interesting thing because I think this has definitely been a year where we would want the organization to voice their frustration a little bit more. Haven't heard from Bat Riley. So hush-hush about Kyle Lowry and his injury. You never get any kind of updates from this team. They're a lockbox. It's an impressive thing. Because it comes with some unpopularity from the fan base when they do this type of stuff. But that's how they do it. That's what they do. Take care of their business, handle their business behind the scenes. And, you do have to respect it. That if this season does come to an end and it does come to a disappointing end, very curious to see like what the reaction is going to be publicly from Riley, from Spo. But usually it is, Spo playing that good cop to Riley's bad cop. That's always the dynamic, even though I don't think that means that Erik Spoelstra is always like sunshine and rainbows. I don't think that's the case at all. I just think that it's usually just Riley's the one who delivers the blunt message. It's like, Kyle Lowry's been dealing with a lot. Riley says he's got to get into better shape. Tyler, Spo will say Tyler was, facing a lot of different coverages. Pat Riley says that he has to go earn what he wants. Like that's typically the dynamic that they run. And it's like a on the bench interacting with players all day to front office type of deal. But, really good article by Barry. I recommend people checking that out if you're a Heat fan. It was in yesterday's Miami Herald. It's on his Twitter account. Thought it was really good. A look into Erik Spoelstra and the mind of one of the best coaches in the business and how he's handled the ups and downs of the season.